Well, let's go back to the media because we have this other story I really want to talk about. The Oscars. From Variety. TV ratings. Oscars plummet to record low, down 58% compared to last year. There's some bad to this. There is. But let's talk about it. They say, per Nielsen Live same-day preliminary national numbers, an average of 9.85 million viewers tuned in Sunday evening to watch a more intimate and stripped-down version. That's a 58.3%, 13.75 million viewer drop from last year. 13.75 million people.
Wow.
Now, get woke, go broke. You want to make this garbage content and keep pushing your incessant pandering? People aren't going to want to watch it. The negative is that we have no cohesive culture we're unified around. We're not all being like, we love the Super Bowl, we love watching the Oscars, because it's become hyper partisan and fractured.
Okay, and good. Because here's the thing, our unifying factors before, we did have like the Super Bowl and some things that would draw both sides together and we could get around. There is nothing left that can do that. And I think that's a good thing for the short term. I think we need to tribalize and go ahead and say, we will not patronize your woke lecture session. You know, it's a struggle session. You know what I mean? It's a Chinese communist struggle session where everyone goes on and admits their wrongs and wears the hair shirt and flagellates themselves. Who wants to watch that if you're not a cult member? So now if we opt out, and we being the anti-woke crowd, whatever we determine ourselves to be, it's a big tent. You know, I'm a big anti-woke tent guy. So as long as you're not hassling me, you're welcome in my tent. Don't patronize them.
This is the craziest thing about, when I sit down with many conservatives, because leftists are worried about getting canceled. They will bend the knee to the cult, even anti-woke left. There are many anti-woke leftists, like they're very socialist, but they don't like the cult. They don't want to come on because they're like, I'll get canceled.
Right.
And so I end up talking to conservatives where on any like policy issue, we will have a debate. But when it comes to the core elements of what's happening in this country right now, we agree. You know what I think it is? Because we talked a lot about religion with Michael Knowles. We've talked about this with many other people. It's a Judeo-Christian moral framework versus a might makes right fascistic moral framework.
Anglo-Saxon legal background. Did you see that?
Well, so conservatives and liberals in the United States share the same moral framework, even if atheist liberals don't want to accept it.
Right.
Like the Fifth Amendment, it is rooted very much so in Blackstone's formulation, rooted very much so from the Bible, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. So when you have liberals who are atheists still agreeing with the right to a speedy trial, innocent until proven guilty, it's like this is a moral framework built upon religion. Now, you may have removed many of those components or things you didn't like about it. I respect that. But there's still that similar moral framework. The woke operate on a fascistic moral framework of might makes right. There is no truth but power. Yeah. So that's the divide right now. So I can disagree with Ben Shapiro on tax policy, but we agree on morality for the most to varying for the most part. I say there's probably a lot of issues we disagree on, but if it comes from like a libertarian or a classically liberal American framework, then we're all basically getting along. Be it disagreeing on political issues and then cracking a beer and having some pizza or whatever.
Agreeing to disagree,
right.
Which is no longer possible with the woke left. All right, they don't even believe it because they believe that our system, our side of the fence, is evil and dangerous, killing the planet, killing people, and all of these things. So they have, because it is a secular religion to them, it is inherent on them to fight and take us out. And so they can't agree to disagree. It's not possible in their moral framework anymore because silence is violence.
I think most of these. I think maybe to the priests of the woke religion, but I think most people who follow this are more like blind zealots. They don't actually know or care what the rules are. They just know that it's like they turn on the TV and everyone's bumping shoulders or elbows saying the same thing.
Oh, and there are no rules, and that's just it. So
exactly.
You can't know what the rules are, but they know they're scared. And so what they're doing is they're looking around and they're trying to anticipate what they shouldn't be doing next.
So I look at, Jimmy Kimmel, for instance. He goes out in the street in Hollywood and he asks questions of people and they give him really dumb answers and he makes fun of them. I know there's a lot of conservatives who do that to leftists. They'll go to leftists and ask them questions, get dumb answers. And the left does it to right. They'll find right-wingers and get dumb answers. And there are a lot of, it's really easy to do with enough editing.
Because people are stupid. I mean, that's the main problem.
Well, because there's a lot of people are stupid.
Ignorant, for sure.
People, on average, are average.
There you go.
But if you go out for 10 hours and you ask 100 people, you're going to find a decent amount of dumb, an average amount of average, and a decent amount of smart. Then you edit out all the smart and average people and get only the dumb people, and you make it look. But I will tell you, man, I've done so many interviews with people on the left, and I've talked to many of my friends on the left, and they don't pay attention. I talk to my average friends who are either like leftists, like legit Bernie leftist types. They pay attention. They're active. Right. I think they're missing a lot of information. And then I talk to the average, center right or right wing person, and they're politically active. They may get things wrong, but they are reading more news than the average person. You talk to like the average liberal, my friends, I talk to them, and they'll say things like, I was talking to my friend, and we were talking about something with like, woke in Hollywood or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, you got to admit, white people are kind of bad. And I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, and I'm like, I don't. Like, what does that mean? I don't understand what that means. I grew up in a mixed race area, so I don't know. Like, you're from the white suburbs. What does that mean? And they couldn't give me an answer. It's just something they heard someone say somewhere, so they just repeat it, and that's it.
It's performative virtue signaling.
Right.
And they want to do that because right now there's only two things that get you. One is wearing the hair shirt and saying that I'm bad because of my skin color. And the other one is going ahead and allowing them to put you in your place. And they don't want to get caught, but they're not informed as to why this actually is. So they can't, to your point, make a coherent case for why they suck.
Well, they just
know they suck.
They just think if they say that, the other person blindly agrees.
Right.
Right. That's the talking point. That's what the TV told me to say.
You're supposed
and
to
so
nod your head.
When someone just goes, what does that mean? It reminds me of that moment with Joe Rogan and Barry Weiss. You ever see that?
I'm not sure.
So Barry Weiss was a New York Times, I think she was an opinion writer. She goes on Joe Rogan's show, and Joe Rogan mentions that he likes Tulsi Gabbard. And Barry says, oh, she's such a toady for Assad. And then Joe just goes, toady, what does that mean? And Barry says, I don't know. She didn't know. Wow. So the video goes viral, and Jimmy Dore makes a video, and he's like, look at this. And like, I think Barry's pretty cool, but that was one of those moments where you got to know what you're talking about, otherwise you're going to get called out. So some people, she was working at the New York Times.
Right.
How much you want to bet she's in the New York Times newsroom, which we know is woke, and someone said that, and she goes, yeah, I know, right? And then she says it, and someone goes, yeah, I know, right? None of them actually know what that means. I guess it meant sycophant, but she couldn't even spell the word. I'm not trying to be mean, but if you go on a show like Joe Rogan and you say something, back it up.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd have just been like, you got me. I shouldn't even said that.
Or that just, so if you don't know that means he's bad, why did you even go there? Because it's the only lick they had on Tulsi. I mean, I like a lot of the things she says. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? She's a Democrat, and she's an odd kind of Democrat, which I can respect.
She's a Republican now.
She probably is a Republican, but she's on that side of the fence still. But yeah, she was wrong about some things she said about Assad. He's a horrible tyrant, and she apologized for him. And don't do that. But like you said, know you're doing it. Don't just repeat the latest thing that everyone's saying.
Know what your criticism is. Yeah. Instead, it's like people just blindly repeat the things. But
they're reading from the woke prayer book.
Right.
All right, which is what it is. Treat it like a religion, and it makes things so much simpler.
It's remarkable. It's like a lack of responsibility, and it's funny because it falls into, Republicans like to say personal responsibility a lot. Well, I'd imagine if you believe in personal responsibility, you're probably going to be responsible for your information gathering more so than someone who doesn't.
Yep.
Someone who thinks the collective will take care of me, opens at the New York Times and says, must be true. New York Times said it. Put the phone away.
And I wish more people on the right or the individualist side, our team, would check their sources. Because there is so much garbage and static and worthless information that gets passed around by people I like. And I'm like, what? It takes 10 seconds. Click the link.
Right.
Click. Even Twitter's telling you, do you want to read this article? Read the article before you retweet it.
Easiest way to put it is that on the right, a failure to collect proper information tends to be the exception. Mm-hmm. And on the left, it tends to be the rule.
Right.
So the reason I say tends to is that I think there are a lot of people on the right who get it wrong a lot of the time. But is it 45% of the time versus 55% of the time they get it right versus the left, which is the other way around?
Right.
So I look at a lot of conservatives. I remember watching this one video where a journalist went down to, actually it was, there was like a YouTuber who goes down to like his Trump event, asks people questions, and you get a lot of like half-cocked answers where they read more than just the article, but they didn't quite understand it fully. Yeah. So they'll say a few things, then hit a roadblock and be like, that's the extent of which I can argue this. And sometimes they look dumb because of it. But you look at my favorite is the Ami Horowitz video where he asks the kids at Berkeley about voter ID being racist. Have you seen that one? And they're saying the most insane things ever. Or actually, Steven Crowder just did a Change My Mind on voter. He says, not having voter ID is racist. He sits down with these people and they can't even explain their ideas. They want to, but they can't.
Well, and they end up making the point that what they have is the soft bigotry of low expectations. You don't believe that black people have either agency or the ability to act as normal American citizens. How racist is that? Well, I think they do.
Do you see what I think Candace Owens said this?
Yeah.
That it's because black conservatives act like equals.
Right.
It's really interesting when you have these college students. I don't want to rehash that more about the media and the lack of understanding. But when you look at these liberals and they believe the things they just saw on TV, it's remarkably racist. Think about this. You get this young woman in this Ami Horowitz video, and she says these things about black people, which are ridiculous and untrue. She's saying overtly racist things, disparaging an entire race of people because CNN said it. That's horrifying.
Yeah, it's the cult in action. Basically, if your leader says something and you believe convincingly, you believe it, you agree with it, and then you repeat it, and someone challenges you, your leader will be there for you to get in front of you and rebuff it for you. But in this case, the leader's not there to back you up. So you hear it on TV, you assume that someone's going to protect you in defense, but
there's no logical pathway, right?
No,
so
it's just blind faith.
I was in San Bernardino.
Devotion.
I was in San Bernardino during a protest. There was Trump supporters and there was Antifa. And I was walking back and forth asking people yo, what's up? What are you doing? Trump supporters all say, here for Trump, America first, yada, yada. I walk across the street and I see a group of Antifa and I was like, hey, would any of you want to mic check, mic check, mic check? They all just start chanting. And then I'm like, I stop. And then they stop. And I was like, I'm just wondering. And the woman goes, do not answer any questions from journalists. And then I'm like, what is happening? She basically starts telling them that journalists will ask them questions to confuse them. If you got a group of people that will hear an external thought and just start mindlessly chanting, that's a cult.
That's definitely a cult. And the reason that they get in trouble when they get singled out from the flock is normally they've got those people to protect them. Yep. Right? To either one person knows another point. So if you've got a dozen leftists, well, maybe one person knows one more additional piece of information. But collectively, none of them, or individually, none of them can make that coherent point. So they have to flock together. And I'd rather, that's again, individualist versus statist. They're used to being force-fed information and just ingesting it and regurgitating it.
It's amazing.
And they're happy that way. They don't want to think about it. They want to feel. Does it make me feel good? Is this the right thought to feel?
I just want to fit in.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I tweeted this like a couple weeks ago, 2 + 2 = 7. And then I replied to the tweet, I'm just trying to fit in. Like, that's the joke. When they said 2 + 2 = 5, a bunch of leftists are like, actually, I do understand why 2 + 2 could equal 5. And it's like, they weren't arguing language. The left was literally arguing that mathematically you could argue math. It's like, no, you can't argue math. Make the formula work. It's like code. You can't argue with your computer. Actually, I think the code I put in should work because this word actually means the computer's going to be like error.
But you can change outcome, and that's what wokeness does. Equity is their ability to say, okay, you can't do math, but what you did was a math-like operation. Therefore, we're going to give you credit for having mathed, and we're going to pass you to the next level of math-like teaching. And now you don't know anything. You didn't learn anything that's useful, but you got told you did. And that's the whole concept they're doing now and saying, again, another racist concept. Black people can't be taught math the same way as white people. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure they can. Or you're some sort of eugenicist racist where you believe there are actual physical differences and somehow they're not capable. Neither of those is a good look for the left.
Isn't it weird how Democrats have always been the racist party and they remain that way? I mean,
they project. That's why they're so mad about it, is because they're scared. When white liberals walk down the street, they're scared of black people. All right. When I walk down the street, I'm scared of black people who are bigger than me, but not most of them. Not because they're black.
Right. When you're on the street, you're worried about anybody
who's bigger or dangerous.
Honestly, I'm not. You know why? I'm not worried about anybody. I've actually been mugged once. But for the same reason, when I'm crossing the street, I don't expect to get hit by a car. It's just people don't want to hurt other people for the most part.
And the odds are against it. And
did you know Robin DiAngelo, who wrote that book, White Fragility, actually said I think it was her. Correct me if I'm wrong. That when she goes to parties full of black people, she's uncomfortable around them.
Jim's the expert.
Oh, that because I wrote The Myth of White Fragility.
She said that, right?
Yeah, and what she believes.
Let me just say something. Like, if you're taking your cues from a woman who admits to you she's a racist and does it and is uncomfortable around black people, maybe you are following a racist. This is the weirdest thing to me. I've been to so many parties in Chicago. There have been a bunch of times where me and my friends are like, we're going to a party. Where at? It's like on the south side somewhere. We show up and it's like, 50 black people, and it never crosses our mind. We show up, we're like, hey, we're like high-fiving people. We're like, dude, where's the cups? I can't fathom this.
Well, but her whole ideology revolves around the fact that she's a racist and so are you. And that's the entire woke concept is white liberal guilt says, I feel this way, I project it onto you.
Therefore you do.
Therefore you must, in order to validate the fact that I'm not just a horrible, weak, disgusting person.
Maybe she's right.
She might be.
There was a video where this guy is like doing a TikTok and he's just like gleefully saying that he's racist. He's like, hey, listen, I'm not going to actually say it, but he says he's racist. And he's like, there, I said it. Why is it so hard? Just admit it. And I'm like, okay, you're a racist.
Right. I have no trouble with that. But that's the difference because like you said, we treat black people like people, not black people. They treat them like black people and they have to have them be black. That's why they had to invert Martin Luther King's concept. It can't be just content of your character. We have to focus on the color first. Otherwise, we're not doing anti-racism.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.